Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Move to Heal podcast. My name is Allie Hirschman.
I'm Colleen Delaney.
And I'm Ethan Hirschman.
And we are so excited that you are here joining us for an interview with Harley. I am so excited for you guys to hear her incredible story and her involvement with Move to Heal. So let's kick it off right there. What brought you to Move to Heal?
Thank you for having me. Just
Yes.
want to say that.
So great to have you
Yeah,
here.
it's
Yeah, I
so
love
nice to
having you
have
here.
you.
Very honored you asked me to come. I found out about Move to Heal through one of my sponsees. I belong to a recovery group and their sponsorship in the program. And I was sponsoring this young woman who had told me about this great meeting where you work out first and then you come together and you talk about anything you're going through, any sort of life trauma, substance abuse, eating disorders, mental health issues, anything. And it's a great group. And she really built it up, and I really didn't know what to expect. So we went there, and it was a great workout. There was a group of people of all ages. Colleen was there. Ethan was there. And we did an icebreaker in the beginning, which was really fun just to get to know people, and then had this workout together. And then we had this incredible meeting where people were open and honest and vulnerable and talking about things they've gone through and where they were at now and what they were struggling with. And I just felt this great sense of community and vulnerability that I didn't really see in other meetings quite to this extent. So I was immediately drawn in and started coming regularly.
Amazing.
Oh, that's so great.
It's so
great. So, Harley, I've known you for just about 5 years. And the woman that I met 5 years ago was not the same person that's sitting here today. And quite frankly, I've been in recovery for a long, long time. And there's people that come into AA, and you kind of can you're like, wow, I hope that those people make it, and you were actually one of those people, because I wasn't so sure. You were really troubled back then, and I think it would be helpful to everybody that's listening to this to kind of hear a little bit about who that person was, and kind of some of the difficulties you had while you were growing up, and that led you to that, and then what led you to recovery, and kind of just share your story with us a little bit.
Yeah. So I have known you for 5 years, and you say this to me every once in a while that you weren't sure if I was going to make it. And whenever you say that, it's like a knife to the heart, but
I'm sorry.
No. In the way that I was just going through so much, and, I didn't know if I was going to make it either. And I was in a desperate, hopeless place when I first saw you in those meetings. And when you say that, it brings me right back there. So it's good for me to think about it, because I can be grateful where I am today. And I'm still processing through a lot of that. I'm not going to lie. I'm not done with my healing process. I think it's an ongoing thing. But to go back a little bit, growing up, I had a little bit of a chaotic environment, households, a lot of yelling, and I was kind of the peacemaker and trying to be the one to make sure everyone else was okay. And in doing that, I lost sight of how I was feeling. So from a very young age, I was externally focused and lost sight of what was going on for me inside, and very quickly developed some coping skills to handle those feelings that I wasn't processing. And for me, my first addiction was food and controlling food, my intake, how much I was exercising, what my body looked like. And it started with thoughts from a very young age, and just wanting to control how I looked.
And also, too, just control something if everything around you feels chaotic or out of your control in that way too, right? Like having this one thing that can, okay, at least I can control how much I'm putting into my body and how much I'm exercising and things like that. It does give us that sense of control.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand why I was feeling anxious, I think would be the right word. I couldn't put words to that as a kid, but just unsure of what was happening and out of control feeling. So it was a way to focus on something else, I think, like what you were saying.
Yeah, and especially as a child, like these things are happening to us or around us, and we're not thinking like, oh, okay, I'm experiencing anxiety right now. What's a healthy coping mechanism to anxiety? We're just trying to survive, you know what I mean? And we do develop these coping mechanisms out of necessity, whether they're healthy or unhealthy. At least it's working temporarily for those moments, or we think it's working. It's providing some relief.
Well, we're kids. I mean, we don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. We don't know.
We're just like, okay, this feels better.
Yes. Right.
You
So-
did, and you didn't know how to
relief.
give yourself compassion. You had such a lack
Right.
of self-love.
Right. I also was a very rambunctious child. I have ADHD, so I had all this energy, and I didn't know healthy ways to get it out. That leads me to a story. So when I was 9 at recess at school, we were playing Red Rover, and I broke through the chain, and there was a brick wall that was way too close to us, and I went as the girls actually got scared that I was running towards, and they let go. So I went as fast as I could into the wall and fractured my skull and broke my arm and knocked my teeth out. And
Wow.
I had a brain injury and missed all this school, and life significantly changed after that. So I already struggled with trying to calm myself, and this dysregulated me even more. And I got all this separation anxiety from my mom, and I just didn't feel okay. I'm not really sure how to explain it other than that, but I had to look outward, look to the adults around me to tell me that I was okay. I couldn't feel it on my own. And that really continued through adulthood and into recovery.
That
Just
will affect you
that
for a very long
feeling.
time. I've experienced someone with a brain injury close in my life, and he was an adult when it happened to him. This is happening to you when you're 9 years old and your brain's not even fully developed yet. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that caused so much chaos in your life, and you were a child. So like you didn't know what to think, how to act, what to do. And I feel like when you were 9 years old, the technology they have today for like, helping heal a brain injury is so different than back then.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even trying to process that at 9 years old, like I can't even imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't understand what was going on, and I'm not sure if I had many people in my life telling me what was going on or telling me that, I was going to think differently and things might be harder and school might be harder and social interactions might be harder. I didn't really have someone explain that to me. And going back to school at the time, there weren't the things set up in place that there are today. So
Yeah,
I just
for
went right
sure.
back into the classroom.
Like normal.
No
like,
Yeah,
social
you
work,
didn't- you
no
didn't-
helper.
Yeah, you didn't get the
Right.
help you needed,
No.
and you suffered. And it's like people that have undiagnosed learning disabilities that they don't get the help that they need, so they suffer through school, and it affects them for life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very unsettling going back to school. And then there was all the family stuff going on, and things were getting to be a little more challenging at home. It was not getting better. And I started to be at home by myself a lot, just circumstances. I had a very hardworking dad that was traveling all the time. My mom is a nurse, and she was working the later shift, so I wouldn't see her on those days. And then my brother had his license, so he was just gone all the time. So I spent a lot of time at home, and like I was talking about before, I really struggled to feel just a sense of well-being, just a feeling of being okay. So I was terrified.
Not feeling safe.
I didn't feel safe.
No safety. Yeah.
I was so scared. Terrified is the right word. I was scared, and I would call and want someone to come home, and nobody could come home, and it was just a terrible feeling. And I became very depressed, and around midway through high school, I started finding substances that would take me out of that feeling. I had a friend of mine that had pills, opiates, from a parent that had surgery, and would steal them. And that became the only thing that made me feel okay. So I still had some of these body things I was focusing on, which helped a little bit. But this was like, that terrified feeling wouldn't go away without the substances and drinking and whatever I could get my hands on.
It's such an easy solution, right? You take a pill and it's gone, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, temporary.
Well,
Solution,
no, but I mean,
in the
that,
moment.
I mean, you know, the feeling that substances give a person that's struggling is so amazing. It's like a miracle.
Yeah.
When at first.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Until
right.
And then it takes down your life.
Until
Right.
it's not. Right.
Right.
But at first, that's what it feels like. It feels like
It's relief.
this is like what I've been looking for my whole life.
Yeah,
Right.
and at 16, I really couldn't name what was happening. I couldn't tell people I didn't feel okay being alone. I'm
Yeah.
a teenager
Yeah,
trying
right.
to become
You had
an adult.
that feeling of abandonment.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
that feeling of abandonment, but I wanted to do it on my own. You know, you're trying to get your independence and make it. So I really didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about it, not my friends, not anybody. So, and I was pretty angry at my parents at this point because I was like, why aren't you
Yeah.
here?
Right.
So I kind of cut them out emotionally, and all I had were these substances and this eating disorder to focus on. And then I went through this series of deaths midway through junior year. So 5 people died within 6 weeks. And it was just shocking.
my
my first
gosh.
time experiencing death. And one was my grandma, who was the person that knew me most in the world. Another boy in my school had committed suicide. It was my friend's boyfriend. And that really just completely tore the rug out from under me. So I was already very depressed, and that turned my depression into suicidality. I was like, that's an option. I didn't even realize that was an option. And that became, you know, I fell into this very hopeless place and kind of stayed there for a while.
Yeah.
So there was other people that died, like I had mentioned, and you know, a family member had to give birth to a dead baby, which was
Oh my
terrible.
God.
Just these awful
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
And just so hard for anyone to deal with, but especially, you know, a teenager that's just
Yeah.
experiencing death for the first time.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I go to college, and I went up to New Hampshire. I'm from Connecticut, but I wanted to get away, and I had family from New Hampshire, so it was like this always safe place for me to go up to New Hampshire. So I went up there, and the first few months were amazing. You know, it was like, forget about your problems. You don't know anyone. I can drink whenever I want. I can do other things the way I want. And then after a few months, I think I had found a diary that I had written in high school. And I read it, and it took me right back there in a second. And the depression just came, and it was like this dark wave just came over me and took over. And that suicidality came right back. And I mean, it was shocking. It was like day and night. I was so okay, and then I was so not okay. And
it was instant. Was like instantly.
From what I remember, that's how I remember it. I mean,
Yeah.
my freshman year is quite blurry, because after that, I think within a week, I ended up, and I took a bunch of pills I had stolen some Ambien and Xanax from my mom, and I came back to school after Christmas break, and whatever had happened, I'm not really sure. Something came over. You know, I wasn't in a good place. And I took all the pills, and I remember I had a handle of Sky vodka, and I remember looking in the mirror with such self-hate and such despair and just not knowing what to do. And I just felt so alone. And the next thing I knew it, I woke up and I was in a hospital and off to the behavioral health unit at Portsmouth Regional Hospital. And I was there for 10 days, and actually, the anniversary of that is tomorrow.
Wow.
Oh my
But I realized
gosh.
when we talked about the date.
Wow.
And so that was a rock bottom for me.
And how old were you at that?
So I was 18. I was a freshman.
Wow. Okay.
So young.
I was a freshman in college, and I remember we were in the hospital, and it was my first substance abuse meeting, and they went around the room, and you say your name, and you're an alcoholic, whatever. I didn't know what to say, so I remember it's like, "Hi, I'm Harley, and I'm in college."
Oh, Harley.
So cute.
So that was my first
I can just
meeting.
picture you doing that.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
I ended up going back to school and just trying really hard to clean up my life, but I was struggling. And I left school and I started working at this restaurant. And that restaurant was incredible and became my family and this place where I learned how I learn. And
Wow.
I really had a boss that took me under his wing. But it also allowed my addictions to take a active role in my life. I could drink and use how I wanted while I was working. Nobody really noticed my eating disorder behaviors. It was the perfect place for me to go and, make these connections, but also be able to live how I guess I wanted to at the time.
Yeah. What I keep thinking about is it sounds like you gained independence at way too young of an age. So you were always alone with your thoughts and you never turned to anyone because you didn't have anyone. So as we know, when you carry these on in your life, you bury these problems and you start making these horrible decisions in your life and you're like, not asking for help, you're not talking to anyone, and then it just becomes a snowball effect and then everything blows up. And then it's like, this is the importance of like what Move to Heal is the community and also like talking about what you have going on in your life.
Yeah, the thing that resonates with me with what you were just saying, I remember wanting help really badly and not knowing where to turn. You could find a therapist, which I could tell you a whole story. I won't go into it, but I struggled to find a therapist that would work for me. But I kept on trying. I was really desperate to get help. And for whatever reason, I didn't meet the right people at that time that came into my life yet to guide me into a recovery life. Or maybe I wasn't ready yet. But
Yeah, that's really amazing because, like, I think of like that's not usually the norm. Usually, people are denying that there's a problem.
Yeah.
I knew I needed
and not
help.
looking for help.
But it became normal that you didn't have anyone around you to support
Right,
you. So
right.
you're like, I can do this on my own.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So I kind of just was teetering for a while, and it was up and down and up and down, and then 6 years later, it's that up and down, and I'm 25 at this point, and I got into another very low point where those suicidal thoughts were coming in very frequently and intensely, and I didn't know what to do anymore. So I ended up coming back down to Connecticut, and I went to a therapist I had in high school, and she ended up sending me to the hospital. She was worried about me, the thoughts that I was having, and thought that was the best thing for me to do. And I agreed to go. And then from there, I ended up going to rehab. And then while I was in rehab, they basically told me I was a liability because of the eating disorder. So then they sent me to this eating disorder facility where I was in eating disorder treatment for about a year. And then I came back to Connecticut and found a recovery community here. And then 3 years into recovery, that's where I found Move to Heal.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So I met you when you had just gotten back to Connecticut.
I had just gotten back, and I was still struggling with the eating disorder at that point.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sober yet.
So when just backing up a little bit, because I'm kind of curious. You said you were teetering for a number of years, right? So were you at this? Were you having like moments of like, okay, I think I got this, and then no, I don't, and then yeah, I do, or were you just kind of on the edge of falling off the cliff all the time?
I would say the latter.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I say teetering, I mean I wasn't every second thinking that I'm going to go and do something to hurt myself.
Got it.
So
okay.
it was between
okay.
like, I don't know how to make myself okay right now, but I'm just going to keep on trying to
So you were in the darkness all the time, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Not to say there weren't happy moments. Of course there were, and I had friends up there, but no one that could see these parts.
Yeah.
I did not let anyone in enough to see it because I thought I was too damaged. I thought nobody would understand what I was going through. I thought people would think that my thoughts were crazy.
It's such a lonely place, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just...
And I love listening to you in the meetings. And I feel like one of the things you always say is you feel things so deeply. Mm-hmm. So your emotions, like you say, go like up and down all the time. And that's so hard to regulate, you know?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, was I like that before the brain injury, or did the brain injury make that so it takes me longer to process these feelings than other people? But yeah, I've always been a super feeler. I think
that's so good though. And you've come such a long way, and you are learning to regulate your emotions, because feeling things is the first step of like healing and like moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse.
Well,
but I've been able to use it.
And you always describe it so well. You describe your feelings so well and so clear, where I feel like everyone in the room can really feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said the blessing and the curse, and the blessing, honestly, is probably for everybody else, because you know,
That's
I mean, from my interactions with you, Harley, because we had there was about a 2-year span that I didn't really see you, and then all of a sudden.
My first 2 years of sobriety.
Yeah, and then like this superwoman appeared. Like I was like,
oh no, about
wow,
that.
She's no, your recovery was strong, and you were able to harness this thing, because most people don't you want to live in denial, like it's not happening. And I can be okay if I just compartmentalize it and throw it over here. And when it bombs into my life, I'll deal with it or not deal with it. But if I can just pretend it's not happening, I can be okay a little bit.
Or, put it over here and focus on something else.
And honestly, that's what substances would do. But once you take those out of the equation, you have to find other ways of dealing with this stuff. And the real way is to face these issues, and figure out new ways to filter them, deal with them, so that you can be okay, right? But the habit, like I have 30 years into recovery, is still to ignore it. Like it's not happening. Let me throw it over here, and I have all this other good stuff going on, so I'll just live over here for a while and I'll pretend that's like not going on, right? And you never do that. You seem to face things head on.
I don't have the ability to do that.
Well, maybe you don't have the ability. It's kind of like I can't cry. You can't push this stuff aside.
It's there, and I see it, and I can't ignore it. It's like until I try to understand it more, I can't let it go.
Yeah. And you always come into the meetings and you're so raw and honest. So like you could come in and you're like, I'm feeling really good today. And you just give everyone like words of wisdom. And then there's days where you come in and you're like, guys, I'm just not feeling it today. Can I just like let out what I need to let out? And everybody just listens. And we still get words of wisdom from you, even when you're like in, your dark place.
Yeah, because you're teaching us how to act, like what to do when we're there. No, it's true. I always say, like, how does this 31-year-old woman who's been in recovery for 5 years, every time she speaks, I learn something.
Wow.
She turns her pain into power.
Amazing. I was just about to say that we always talk about pain into power. Does that ring true to you? Your pain became your power.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much. You guys, you're really
blushing.
good at making me feel good.
Well, you're good at making us feel good.
Yes.
Too,
and also, you should feel good. What you've accomplished, I mean, just at 31 years old, I think is so inspiring. And I hope someone that's listening to this right now that, you said when I looked in the mirror, like that self-hatred, there is someone listening right now that feels exactly that, And I hope that they can hear your words and be inspired to keep moving forward.
Could you imagine like if you told your 10-year-old self that you would be where you're at today and giving and people in the meetings, like when I tell you, you walk into the room, you light up the room and everybody loves when you share, especially me. I just get so much perspective from when you share and I relate so much. And your pain that you've been through allows you to be vulnerable with everyone and relatable. You know, people take something from everything you say.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that whole idea of pain to power.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that now, and I guess so all the things that I've gone through, there's been a lot of grieving for sure. You know, there was a lot of things that I needed to process through, and I'm still processing through. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's not something that just goes away overnight, but I want to be able to use these things that I've gone through and help other people, right? I strongly believe that we go through things so that we can help others, and that's what I want to do. And there's people that have gone through things and they've helped me so much. So if I can do that for other people, and I don't know how I do that, right? I show up and
you do it naturally.
Just show up and open your mouth.
Yeah.
That's it.
And be honest.
You don't even have to open up your mouth. Your energy
I was
just
gonna
lights up
say,
the entire room.
Your energy is so safe, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like it just like radiates. You have a
It's
great
like
energy.
pure.
Pure.
It's pure energy.
Yes.
It's
authentic and
there's
real.
The
nothing-
perfect way to put it is like sometimes meetings can go, you know, like to a really positive direction, or it could be a really heavy meeting. When you raise your hand, I'm like, oh, because it just shifts the whole energy in the room.
Wow, that's power.
Yeah. And again, no matter if you're going through something heavy that day too, it's just the way you present it and the perspective, the lightness in your voice and the honesty just really, really is remarkable.
So just to point it out, like the last 2 meetings that I've been at with you, one of them, you were not in a good space and you were able to be vulnerable, tell everybody that. Share your pain with the group, which allowed other people to feel like, wow, if she can do that, maybe I can do that. And then the next meeting, you were sharing the power that's created from all this and dealing with all these things head on, as opposed to, you know, pushing them, just stuffing them down, and you know, and trying to, you know, if they pop up, I'll stuff them down again. You know, you don't do that ever. You never do that. And I watched the people in the room both times get benefits, like both times. So never stop being you. And I know it can be a curse, because like you think, wow, people can actually stuff this away and not even think about it. Like how awesome would that be, right? But the result and the gift that you give to others as a result of not being able to do that, I'm getting chills.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it,
Yeah.
because it's amazing. And honestly, it's like, you know, it's why after you came back, or we reconnected after a couple of years, and I saw what was going. I never let go of you after that. I'm like, whenever I saw you, I'm like, I got to talk to Harley. I got to listen to Harley. You know, it was always like that for me. So
I also think that's really cool. Like, you're 31, you're 61.
Yeah.
And you know, you learn so much. And that's why I love, whether, you know, obviously you guys met in the program, but like Move to Heal, like I always see people learning from everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And I think
Happens
that's
all the
Doesn't
time.
matter what your
special
background
thing.
is.
Right.
Doesn't matter what your background,
Yeah.
how
What your
old
age
or young you
is.
are.
Yes.
Everybody
It's
learns
amazing.
from everybody else, and that's where that strength and community comes.
Yeah.
At Move to Heal.
Right.
You know.
For sure.
Well, I feel like if I didn't feel that safety, and if I wasn't able to build that trust with people like you, I wouldn't be able to be vulnerable like that. So it's because of people like you and Colleen that in the meetings we're able to show what's going on in our lives and be truthful.
Yeah, setting an
That's
example.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so incredible. So we always like to kind of wrap things up with, you know, maybe a piece of advice, words of wisdom, whatever it may be. Someone that's listening to this hasn't taken the step to, you know, join Move to Heal, but your story is like, you know, resonates with them a lot. what is something that you would say, or maybe even speaking to your younger self, maybe something that she needed to hear from the person that you are today?
Oh man, yeah, that's a good one. Well, the first one, a little bit what I just touched on before about the vulnerability piece, that opening that vulnerability hole, like I had these walls that were built up so high. I felt so abandoned from my family and from people that I closed people off. You know, I didn't feel safe with other people. And it happened not when I was in rehab, but when I moved to the eating disorder facility. I was like noticing how people were being vulnerable. And I was like, I have to try to do that. I have to just put my toe in the water and see how this goes. So once I did that, once I opened up this tiny little hole in my heart and let someone see it, it was this beautiful thing. I found connections with people that I didn't know I could have because I had closed people off from such a young age. And that led me to be able to keep doing it. So I guess for me, that was the first step. And I think a lot of people build walls up when they've been hurt. So getting the courage to open yourself up just a little bit to somebody you trust and just see how it goes.
I love that.
Yeah, not letting your past harden you and keeping your heart soft.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then to my younger self, I feel like I would just say, you know, you have no idea what's going to come of this, and you're going to be okay no matter what, and keep going. I have this little plaque that's in my car. It's a Winston Churchill quote, and it says, "If you're going through hell, keep going." You know?
I love that.
I love it. And I have it in my car, and I stare at it every day.
Great.
And it's just, you got to just keep going.
Yeah.
The harder I fall, the stronger I rise.
Yes.
That's so great.
Perfect.
I love that. Well, I think this is a great note to kind of wrap everything up. Harley, thank you so much. That was incredible.
Thanks, Harley.
So
and
glad you're here, Harley. Thank you so much for your story.
Yeah, that was just absolutely incredible. You guys, thank you for checking out another one of our episodes of the Move to Heal podcast. Please like, subscribe, share this with someone that you feel would benefit from it. You can find us at www.movetohealct.org. If you have any questions, email us info@movetohealct.org. We're also on Instagram at movetoheal.ct. Once again, my name is Allie Hirschman.
I'm Colleen Delaney.
And I'm Ethan Hirschman.
We hope you guys have a great day. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.